We promote ourselves, if you read the English page of our website, that we are the movement of the responsible parents. We intentionally don't focus on the word fathers. We initially named ourselves Fathers Committee because just of sheer statistic. Because, as I said, 95% of fathers lose their cases. But we also welcome the women who sometimes find themselves in the similar situation. It happens, not very frequently, it's rarely, but it happens. And from that point, I'll proceed to the other very important point. The meeting was advertised as comparative analysis. So now there is a thing to compare, which is, in Russia, there is no such judicial, legislative, legal definition as parental abduction. Now I ask you a question, don't hurry to answer. I want to give you time to think. Do you think, in Canada, that notion exists, right? So my question is it good or bad that parental abduction exists as some act of misbehavior, felony, or maybe even crime? In our outcome, we are split nearly half by half, 50-50, in favor of promoting criminalization of parental abduction and in favor of leaving the things as they are. What happens with the parents, or rather with the children now? For example, once again in my case, or in some other practice, my wife effectively has kidnapped my child. But it is not a crime according to the Russian law. She can do that, and police, children custody officers, courts, every state official, everything, the whole system, they don't consider it a crime, a felony, a misconduct. They say it's your family matter. We don't interfere in the family matters because in the Russian code, there is a clear indication that the state does not interfere in the family matters when it comes to the children. It's up to their parents to settle their differences. It's very convenient position for the state official to do less job, not to be bothered by. But what happened next? That omission in the Russian law leads to a very peculiar situation. The businesses mushroomed in Russia, which makes money on re-abduction, re-kidnapping, I may say. Can I use that word? Do you understand? Re-abduction. Oh. Someone abducted, and you abduct the child back. So you pay money to some agency. Normally, usually, those agencies employ former policemen, former law enforcement officer, maybe from KGB, from where, who know how to track the people, who know how to tap the phone calls, which is illegal, by the way. And those agencies, some desperate father comes to the agency, brings a photograph of his abducted child, and say, I pay you money, you bring me the child back. So those private detectives, they track somehow, I don't know how, I don't know their technology, but they do their job more or less honestly. They track the mother, a child. They then, for example, they find out that a child visits a child care facility, a kindergarten. They found out the timetable when the child is alone. And the father drives to that child care facility, grabs his child. Usually the kid does not object, it's his father, he's missing him. So everything goes very voluntarily. Once again, there is no crime. Father has a right to bring his children whenever, within the boundaries of the Russian Federation. And even abroad, if the country doesn't ask a visa for Russian passport. But what happened next? Those agencies even may provide the father and the child with a temporary accommodation so the other side would not locate the whereabouts of the child. and the child becomes a ball in a ping-pong game. He spends some time in his father's home, then he's abducted again with his mother. That could last forever, at least until a child is big enough to make his own decision where he or she wants to live with whom. But you understand very well how that ping-pong game shapes that child mentality, his child brain. This child actually becomes mentally, he becomes neurotic. I know that from my personal experience, because my 5-year-old son has already been diagnosed with neuroticism, a slight form of neuroticism. Because when he is with me, I'm not abducted. We have agreement with my ex-wife. But no law, no court ruling can persuade or oblige a parent not to say some trash about the other side. It happens behind the closed doors. So children in those situations become neurotic nearly by definition, if the parent cannot agree between themselves. So generally, now we may turn that lecture to something interactive, because I can speak about this issue 25 hours a day. I'm living with you there. So, any questions? Okay.
From your knowledge, which country has like the best laws when it comes to equality for parents?
I only learned the laws of Russia, former Soviet Union countries, because actually the former Soviet countries, they all have nearly the same law. By the way, Russian family, why that happens? I remember one more thing I want to say. Why Russian family code has so visible difference with the real life? It was written in the Soviet times, maybe somewhere back in the 1970s, when economic situation, political situation, social structure was completely different. Those times it was Venus, now it's Mars. Yeah? But the family law remains the same. Now, very many, maybe not very many, I exaggerated, but a growing number of men feel themselves capable to upbring a child without participation of their mother. And they push for that right. They try to defend that right and to break, to change that century-old mentality that family is based on woman's desire and man is only a hunter to bring money in, whereas children, like in German, kitchen, Kirchen, Kinder, right? These 3K, not Ku Klux Klan, but in the kitchen, yeah. I mean Russian and Canadian fathers alike, we should break the mentality. And I myself, studying from my personal experience, I came through 5 courts in 5 years of my child life. Now I'm very experienced. For example, during maybe my 3rd or 4th hearing, I stood in front of a judge, starting with the line like that. Your Excellency, everyone knows that it's not a woman's business to bring children. Everyone knows that it's man who cares about home. It's man who cares about family and children more than woman. A woman's business is to earn money and bring them to home. Fathers, men are biologically and psychologically better tuned to deal with children. The judge's jaw fall on the floor. It was a moment of my triumph, honestly. This is called breaking the stereotypes, right? And I teach my colleagues, my friends, my supporters, followers, when they come to the court, behave that way. Because the judge actually, my judge in that case, she even announced a short break. She should make up her mind. She didn't know what to say. Yes. So in that term, I'm now answering your question. Once again, when you said about laws, you mean the laws on paper or how they apply and introduce in reality?
I actually meant in practice, because
in practice, yeah. I think I cannot say that for 100% certainty, but I think the family laws in Russia, as they are written, are just perfect. They are much better than I know that in Canada. But the problem is another problem. Not only that the laws have not been executed. The problem is that Russia very, I don't know for better or for good, but Russian legislator tried to move to the Western direction. They gradually cut off the freedoms Russian men still have. Now, State Duma, the parliament, has been discussing the new edition of the family code, which maybe, I'm afraid to use the word hopefully, but maybe introduce the notion of parental abduction. So it's not even a family code, it should be a criminal code. But on the other hand, maybe they will introduce the definition of shared parenting. If the definition of shared parenting will be introduced, it will solve maybe the huge majority of the problems we'll face. Because now it's up to a judge to decide whether or not to allow the other side to participate in the child upbringing, and if yes, to what degree. If that definition will be engraved in the law, the judges will be less free to make ruling of their will. So once again, as I already said, it doesn't mean that this law, however progressive, will be executed. Yes.
I just want to have one response to the application, and that is, I go to meetings called FACT, which stands for Fathers Are Capable Too. It has to do with parental alienation. And the law favors the women. That's in that case. A woman could call and say, I feel threatened by my husband. They could come and arrest him. So the law really favors the women.
I just remember hearing before I heard about this, that in practice, Sweden had very aggressive laws when it came to parents staying at home that allowed both parents to do 2 years. So that in theory, the first 4 years, the kids could have one parent. But they allowed both parents to do it, the male.
Is it up to a judge to decide will be it year after year, or 2 years and 2 years, or months?
I think this was the workplace. The work allowed the coworker to leave, the employee to leave.
So it's against up to a judge.
No, it never went to a judge. It was just the boss would. It was. I think the government.
But still, it should be shared 50-50.
Yeah, that's what it was. They both had 2 years each.
Because, you know, I've heard the opinions of several professional children psychologists who objected very fiercely to the very notion of shared parenthood, or how to say. They said that a child gets used to a place he lives. And a child should have a place he could call home. They argue that if child has 2 homes, it could lead to a sort of schizophrenia in his mind, because his mind will be split between 2 houses. He will belong to neither of them. Personally, I disagree with that. But I'm saying it just to highlight, to stress that that problem is not that simple. Actually, when it comes to children affairs, there is another one big problem, the drastic problem. When a court, a judge hears the case which involves children, she is not obliged to invite psychologists to participate. A parent may ask to set up psychological expertise. And children will write some, draw some pictures. Here is mother, here is grandmother, and all these things there on the list. Yes, but it's judge's right, but not obligation. If the judge is just lazy, it's for me life-threatening case. For her, it's just a joke. She's got tens of people like me every day, so she doesn't care very much. And the problem is that the judge usually makes a ruling about children custody. Absolutely the same way as she rules about, I don't know, sharing a garage or a house. So for a judge, a child is not a person, it's a thing. And it happens very, very often, too often, that court decisions rule against the best interest of the child. This is a...
What's the child support and alimony laws in Russia compared to Canada? How is it?
About Canada, I think someone else. I can answer about Russia. I pay alimony myself.
Yeah.
There are two options. Either a parent who remains childless pays 25% of his income monthly, or in certain cases, if, for example, he hasn't got salary, he's not salaried, he has a business, or he has a permanent job, the judge may order him to pay some fixed amount, say equivalent of, I don't know, $1,000. Depends on, there are two options. What about Canada? No, it's my question. No. What is alimony law in Canada? No one knows. Okay.
Oh, I was wondering, when you're referring to the judges, you keep on using she. Do you feel you have the same reaction from male judges?
I participated as a public advocate, as a public supporter, in about maybe 15, 13, something like that, dozens or something hearings. Only one time the judge was male.
Okay.
Only one time. It's very similar like with the teachers. How many male teachers? So the judge's job is very well paid. So it's not like a teacher's case. I don't want to go to the school because the salary is very low. But continue to answer your question. I didn't find any big difference between the ruling which female judge made and male judge has made, because Russian law is not that of Anglo-Saxon law. In the Anglo-Saxon legal system, there is the notion of, now I came to the territory where I lack vocabulary. The meaning is, since a court has decided something a century ago, what's the name?
Precedent.
Precedent. Yes, precedent law. Russia lacks the precedent law. But in reality, Russian courts follow the same way. Formally, there is no precedent law, but in a real situation, a judge must have very higher citizen bravery, if you want, to break the tradition. If the judge knows. On the other hand, on one hand, judge is appointed for life. She could not be removed from her position, or his position, for making a ruling which is contradictory to the tradition. But the judge doesn't exist in the vacuum. When she leaves the court, she mingles with the same people, she hears the same stories, so she's a person, she's not a robot. So it's very difficult for her, not only professionally, but psychologically, to break the tradition. So it's actually it doesn't matter if the judge is male or female.
So the second part of my question, how is the child support laws in Russia? What are they like compared to Canada?
I cannot compare it to Canada. Once again, I don't know Canadian laws in that respect.
So what is the child support system there?
Child support system is if there are two parents, both are alive. The law states that both parents have equal responsibility for supporting their children. So there is a minimum wage or minimum level of money the child must receive monthly. Different regions have different level, depends on their lifestyle or what level general wellness. Not wellness, but what is another word? Tell me. Okay, different regions have different economic situation. So salaries are different, cost of life is different. So in one region it would be maybe $300 per month, in another region 500. Moscow is higher, in the regional, somewhere in Siberia it's lower. But both parents must pay their supposed equal sum. My 25% should be equal to those money the mother is supposed to spend for our child. Actually, I paid more. Volunteer. The problem, there is another big problem. There are rather not so many fathers actually wants so their children live in poverty. But the problem is when you pay money to the child's mother, you lose control over those money. And you cannot be sure whether the mother spends the money on child or for herself, going to the bars, for her car, like mine. This is why many fathers try to avoid paying alimonies by all ways. Not because they are so greedy, they don't want to support their children. They don't want to waste money to their exes who are now strangers for them.
Like you understand to tell your own story about your wife and your child who didn't have any communication, you live apart from him months ago. What happened with the church when you go to the court to ask for divorce, to ask for the custody of the child? Did the church ask your wife about the reasons she had to keep you out?
No, actually, during the first hearing, I've got 6 or 5 hours. She didn't even look at her direction. Everything was pre-decided. I actually felt it was a sort of theater. Everyone plays his or her role. She played the role of a judge. My wife played the role of a victim, paradoxically. So the actual victim was me. And I played the role of a really abused father.
Did she explain something about this? She accused you?
She didn't accuse me. I don't know, I cannot read her mind. I'm not a mind reader. But it looks like she just didn't believe that I honestly and sincerely want to participate in my son's life. Because she asked, I've already said about that she asked the question like, tell me the truth. I will say no. Tell me the truth. Why do you want to participate in the children's life? It will drain for your time, it will drain for your money. You can instead go to find another woman, to have children with another woman. Just forget. Erase it from your mind. She told it very aggressively, very seriously, and I think, I just suspect, I have no any evidence, that something came from her personal experience. The majority of the judges are women, and the majority are divorced. So they just try to revenge the other men for their personal failures. I don't know. This is a problem. Once again, this is psychological. Whatever state do or whatever the legislative power can adopt and pass, they cannot change the situation in the brain. If in the country, maybe I hope that my adoptive country, Canada, has the better laws than my native country. I hope so very much. But if in Canada the laws are executed, I remember your election. But if in Canada the laws, in any case, are executed and obeyed better than in Russia. When I'm in Canada, I feel myself more secure. I feel myself just safe than in Russia. The Russia is very lawless country. Very much.
I have another question. So what do you feel are like the main cultural reasons why there's a discrepancy between the laws and what's
A
happening?
very, very good question. I also wanted to speak about that. In the Russian psyche, in the Russian language, there are proverbs which says, I will not translate that word by word, but the meaning is, the cruelty of the Russian laws compensate with the lack of necessity to implement them. This is even in the Russian proverbs. It came very back, I don't think, maybe back to Mongol Tatars invasion. I'm not historian here. It's difficult for me to say that for sure. This is my opinion, just as a person who knows history of his country. Because Russia used to live under Tatar rule for 4 centuries. And for a Russian person, it was a matter of wisdom. It was a matter of survival to deceive the authorities. And it is engraved in Russian mentality. The lawlessness comes not because all people around are criminals. They just don't understand why on earth I should obey the law if I can not to obey that. Just an example from the real life. I drive on a 3-lane highway in Russia, and there is a road shooter. And some crazy guy, one by one, pass me over the road shooter, while the 2 left lanes are free. Why they do that? Why do they do that? It's impossible to explain from the reasonable point of view. This is just a mentality. If I can do that, why should I restrict myself to have a pleasure to drive on the road? It's impossible to understand.
Just to comment on that, surely it's the case that if that's the way we've always done it, if that's the way we do things around here, which is what culture is, if that's the way we do things, that seems very natural to us. So if I'm used to passing you on the right, it's very natural for me to do that. If I'm not used to, and if you said, why don't you pass them on the left, it's safer, I'd say, no.
Why wouldn't?
Why always do it on the right? And so we all live in a world of what's natural and normal for us. So consequently, when you go to the court system or the school system, which is my area, but wherever you go, people are used to doing things a certain way, and they have a certain belief pattern. And you caught it very much what you said, the stereotypical view. Stereotypical view is women are nurturing and men aren't. So if I were going to appoint a judge, a family court judge, out of that belief system, I would always appoint a woman because she's nurturing. And this guy is cold and callous and money grubbing and so on. But it's a mindset that says this is natural, this is normal, this is the way things are. And it's that stereotype which you're trying to break. But that stereotype results in the appointment of certain groups of people as judges. It applies to decisions that are made. An awful lot of people, I would suspect, in Russia, would look at your situation and say, well, that's the way it should be. I mean, I don't agree, but the point I'm trying to say is...
I understand, but the state is supposed not to go to not to follow the stereotypes, the common stereotypes. This is why the state exists. It should actually be equal to everyone. The law must be applicable to everyone, regardless of age, occupation, sex, whatever, nationality, whatever. And this is actually written in the Russian laws. Once again, the Russian laws, as they are written, they are okay. I cannot complain.
No.
But we live not on paper. I often, many dozens of our parents, our fathers, calls me. My phone is always hot because my phone is a national hotline. I just removed the card while I'm in Canada. When I come back to Russia, it will be hot again. They ask me the question, how should I behave in that situation? I always ask a question. Please decide what you want. Do you want to receive a decision which you would like, but the decision will be on paper, or you would actually want to see a child. These are very different things. If you want to receive just a paper, to pin it on the wall and admire, do that and that and then go to the court, hire a lawyer, and you will receive your 3 days a week, which is enough. For many working parents, it's enough to see their children 3 days a week. In the evenings, it's okay. But I ask the second question. Suppose that you will receive that decision, and you won't likely receive it. You will get it, what you want. How are you going to see your child after that? You will come, you will take that ruling, with a rubber stamp on that, go to your ex door, and kiss that door. You will knock, you will ring, no one answers. Well, you go to the court martials with the decision and say, here is the decision, here is the ruling, she is obliged to let me see the child. You come with an officer or two, Mr. Franz, they knock the door. She cannot not open the door to the official. She opens the door and say, I'm not violating any rule, I'm not violating the rule. I agree, I don't mind, I'm happy to let my child see his or her father, but she is now sleeping, or she is ill, or she is busy, she went with her grandmother to the cottage. She's now in the other city across Russia, 5,000 kilometers away. That's it. That's it. What can we do? Maybe it's not a problem, maybe it's good. But the court-martial have no rights even to touch the child. If there is an argument over, I don't know, some piece of property, a TV set or whatever, computer, well, they can take it, remove it, and bring it to the other side. Legally, they have no right even to touch the children. This is where I, once again, like with the case of a parental abduction, I cannot say, I cannot make up my mind to, is that bad or good? Because some of our fathers who re-abducted their children, after they re-abducted their children, they live in constant search. How's correct? Search. Fortress, siege. They live in the constant siege because every 2 days or every couple of days, the court martial knocks their door, demanding to execute the court ruling, which is legally absolutely correct. That should be. I personally participated in that case. There were lots of cameramen from different TV stations because Fathers Committee participated. I'll let tell you, remind me about how mass media first took us. And a father says, please come in, he says to the court martial, ask my daughter if she wants to go to her mother. And I personally witnessed that the daughter, she was maybe 6 or 7 years old, she jumped on the upper shelves under the ceiling. She was actually shouting from fear. And she said, no, father, don't let me to the mother, I don't want to go, leave me here. And the court marshals, what can they do? They left. We have no right, we cannot touch her, we cannot grab her. And when mother tried to approach her, the girl actually climbed to the ceiling. It's not very good actually, because it means that father sort of brainwashed the daughter. But in the opposite situation, it happens very, very often. When mother brainwashes the children, that father is a criminal, he wants to eat you, he wants to kill you, he will abuse you. And when father comes to visit a child, the same thing happens. Child very often also run under the bed or something, hiding, because mother told him, our father will come, big bad wolf, will eat you, like that. And law enforcement agencies, officials, can do nothing.
Are you concerned that if parental abduction is turned into a law in Russia, that it will also be unequally used? So, like,
if the parental abduction will be introduced,
yeah.
On my personal view, which is not shared by all at home, it will be good. Because currently women abduct the children in the first place. Even before divorce. Those family split often starts when parents are still legally married. A mother, mostly it's a mother, sometimes it happens that the father is intelligent enough to calculate how the things will go later, so he makes some preventive measures. But usually it happens that way. A mother abducts, kidnaps a child, and since there is no such a definition as parental abduction, she goes away with it. If the notion of parental abduction will be introduced, and I would ask you the question too, why in Canada is that not happening? I will learn from that experience. In my opinion, if the notion of parental abduction is criminalized, a woman cannot behave like she behaves now. She cannot take a child from a father, otherwise she will be accused of misconduct, of committing crime. Does it happen in Canada?
It happens,
It happens.
yes. But the law takes it fairly seriously.
Does it help?
Well, no, whether it's the mother or the father, I mean, it usually gets fairly publicized. I don't know how often it is, but there's always a case going on every now and then. I think there's one going on right now, actually, where it's a mother who abducted the children, and it's the father that wants it back. But I don't know the numbers, but I'd say I hear both sides. And the law takes it seriously.
Malcolm, here in Canada, any taking of a child from one parent to another is considered as parental abduction, or there should be some additional circumstances to qualify.
I'm not sure, like in detail, but like I just read about.
Because I know your family situation is pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not talking. It's just something I read in the papers or on the internet every now and then. It seems that the police take it fair how far they go to track children down. I mean, sometimes, if a parent's unstable, obviously there'll be a greater effort. But some of these cases last for years. Sometimes, like a mother or father will take the child to another country. That's usually.
Well, that's what I discussed to Andrew, right? This is a problem, for example, both Canadian and Russian, because I once written a letter to Stephen Harper asking to help me, and I received a very polite letter signed by his secretary, whatever, that since my child is a dual citizen, Canada cannot interfere. That's the case. And I cannot receive, my son has a citizenship certificate, but he hasn't got Canadian passport, because for that he needs his mother's consent, which he doesn't give.
It's a shame.
Yes, because it's a problem which is impossible to bypass. I've got to wait until he's 16.
It's getting a little late, and Igor has been extremely gracious and flexible with all the ups and downs as of you, our audience. I appreciate all of you being patient with that. I do want to say, though, that despite the hour, we are inviting those of you who haven't been to the new, soon-to-be open Canadian Centre for Men and Families to come and visit us. We're going to head over there tonight. Actually, we'd love to have you. Well, you've been there, but you're welcome to come back. So maybe we'll take another 1 or 2 questions, if that's okay. Are there other?
No, I told you I can speak around
25 hours. Maybe we'll give Milutin the last question.
No, it's not a question. You said to bring it up about the mass media's reaction. When you
yes.
Let's deal with that, and then we'll close the event. Then I'll give you information on the center.
So what I saw here a few hours before is a very similar reaction we in Russia received initially. When we announced, I personally as a professional journalist sent out press releases to all media available that in that place there will be, in certain place, in certain time, there will be a first gathering, a first convent of the newly conceived parental fathers movement. Of course, there was a few, to be honest, a few journalists, a handful of journalists, and a much bigger handful, but much bigger, of women who behave like those. only women. This was a mixed crowd. There was only a female crowd who shouted things like, "You are going to abduct our children. If you are for fathers, you are against mothers. If you are for fathers, you are against mothers." In Russian, it sounds even better. There are female groups. They don't call themselves feminists. The word feminism non-existent in Russia. Everything knows what feminism is, but on the ground there is no feminist groups. It's somehow alien to Russian mentality. I don't know why. But there are many groups of women who could be called Russian mothers, women of Russia, and so on and so forth, who started seeing us as their personal enemies. I stress the word personal because many people from our movement are ex-husbands of the women from those movements. They started writing poison pen letters to Interior Ministry, to investigative committee, which is the Russian analog of FBI. They wrote letters to State Duma, even to the Kremlin administration, accusing me personally as a coordinator of that group of attempting a state coup, of attempting of blowing up the Kremlin, of, I don't know, coming in conspiracy with Martian aliens, and so on and so forth. It was such a huge pile of rubbish. You cannot believe, I cannot personally believe. I would laugh at that unless it takes half of my life then to visit all these interior ministries, investigative committees, police and other establishments, just to explain that we are not anti-woman movement, that there are several women in our movement who are our allies who side with us. Usually, after those interrogations, those policemen and investigators became our allies. They are mostly men, they understand the situation. But they are formally obliged if they got a report that a crime is cooking, they must interrogate me as organized crime. Let alone the internet, where the certain substance is pulled on the fan constantly. But now, gradually, we have become a more or less respectable movement. For example, me personally, as a professional journalist, I can speak before the cameras. I'm invited as an expert to the television talk shows every week, rather. And we've got a very good and supportive press now. And as I said, currently we're in a process of legitimization of our movement. So far we're just a group of like-minded people, a huge group, but still we're formally not registered. And in November, with the support of State Duma deputies, members, who are also divorced fathers, they are in the same shows, in the same boat. We hope that our group will be formally registered, like a cafe. And also, it's not for today's discussion. I think, well, maybe we can go internationally somehow. Now we've got 3 groups in Canada, Russia, and Bulgaria. So maybe we can start sort of, I don't know, man-international sort of. I'm not sure that it helps in our personal affairs because we live in the different judicial fields. But if I stay in front of the judge and I say, I'm not just a private Igor Serebryany, I'm a member of some international movement. It weighs, it adds and weighs in, yes? So that's it.
Thank you.